Welcome everyone to this new episode of the Privacy Rules Privacy Espresso series, a series where we delve into the latest news on privacy and data protection from all over the world, together with our experts specialized in the sector. Together with me today, I have Luca Egitto from the Italian law firm RPLT, which is our Italian expert, because we are going to discuss about the recent case of the sanction of the Italian authority to OpenAI, and a bit about a more recent news, that is the one of DeepSeek. But before going into the details of those two cases, maybe Luca, you can give us a little overview on the OpenAI case that was that started about 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Thanks, Alessandro. And by the way, thanks to anyone who's connecting with this PrivacyEspresso. OpenAI's history with Italy's supervisory authority started out in 2023, as you correctly pointed out. At the time, our supervisory authority found out about OpenAI from the news. On the one hand, because ChatGPT was making the headlines because it's a disruptive technology, and but on the other hand, the supervisory authority found out about a data breach that impacted data subjects from the EU and in particular from Italy, apparently. So it requested some information to OpenAI, and then later issued a temporary suspension of processing activities for ChatGPT. This is a measure that belongs to the bundle of powers that the supervisory authorities have under GDPR, so it was not unsurprising. After discussions with OpenAI and the undertakings by OpenAI to comply with GDPR, to introduce certain corrective measures, then the suspension was lifted, and OpenAI and ChatGPT was again available to Italy's users. But the investigation didn't stop, and so the supervisory authority completed the inquiry in 2024 and made this, let's say, Christmas gift to OpenAI, because just before Christmas 2024, the supervisory authority published its decision, which is from 20 November. And it contains 4 main findings of non-compliance and a monetary sanction of 15 million, which is the one who made the headlines. But it's very interesting to read the decision, which is quite lengthy, and because of the complexity of the underlying technology. So the supervisory authority focused on 4 main deficiencies and, let's say, non-compliance items, which are first and foremost, the lack of legal basis for processing personal data for the purpose of training the model. 2 is inadequate or lacking information on processing under Article 13. The third one was improper age verification techniques. And 4th was inaccuracy of data processing in connection with the output of the chatbot. So why did the supervisory authority claim these 4 points? Because they tested OpenAI. They verified how it works. They have been browsing all over the website to understand where the information was. And the initial finding was that OpenAI started its operations without being compliant with GDPR. So, and I would say that this is the main point of interest here is the ubiquity of GDPR. So the main defense of OpenAI at the time was, listen, we just started out. We are from the US. We were not prepared to be compliant with any legislation all over the world. So we just started out. We are an online service. Obviously, it can be reached from everywhere in the world. But at the time, we didn't know we should have been complying with GDPR, which is not the opinion of the supervisory authority. That said, practically, you make your service available to data subjects that are under GDPR. So you need to be compliant with GDPR. And before starting any processing operation, you should have already decided which is the appropriate legal basis and should have complied at least with information requirements. And that didn't happen. So the data breach was the starting point of the investigation and the trigger of the inquiry that then prompted to these claims. Another aspect of conflict between OpenAI and the supervisory authority was OpenAI's claim that at the time OpenAI was about to open operations and the legal headquarters in Ireland, so it notified the data breach to the Irish DPC, but Italy's supervisory authority pointed out that at that moment, there was no headquarters yet. So to comply with GDPR, OpenAI should have notified the data breach to all supervisory authorities in the EU. Now, this thing prompted a subsequent and parallel investigation in Ireland. So the Irish DPC is also handling this. But this was one of the major disagreements between OpenAI and the Italy's supervisory authority. And so the biggest one was the allegation that there was no legal basis. So the OpenAI at some point said, well, we relied on legitimate interest. And the supervisory authority said, well, you did not carry out a true analysis, and so you did comply with the accountability requirements. So you started operations and then addressed the issue, but it should have been the other way around. Yeah. And the other thing was in 2023, the information on data processing was very poor. So the supervisory authority said, guys, you have just provided just a few info on how you process data of the people who are using the app. But what about the people that are the data subjects for the data that you've been using for training the model, which is far bigger as a problem? And there was no info regarding this processing activity. Yeah. Then they challenged OpenAI's practice of basically very weak age verifications, and that changed over time. And so now OpenAI has a system to verify info. And then there is a fourth pillar, which is inaccuracy of the data. So that has some sort of connection with DeepSeek that I will let you know later. But the very glamorous issue about ChatGPT in Italy was that a lot of prominent people, including some people from the supervisory authority, publicly typed a prompt asking and inquiring about themselves. And the output was inaccurate in part, which meant they are processing my data, but they're doing it wrong because the output is incorrect. So that was a fourth claim, which is very connected to how large language models work. They rely on statistics and they think that the output they give you is the most reliable based on statistics, but they can fail. And this gives rise to inaccurate data, which is a breach of GDPR. So after all this lengthy inquiry, they came to the conclusions that these allegations had grounds to give rise to a sanction, which was also considered to be reduced by the supervisory authority because it could have been worse, apparently. And it was reduced because of the cooperative conduct and approach of OpenAI. So we'll see what will happen. So that this type of decisions can be appealed and challenged. And so I think that something might happen and might come up. Will be interesting, but as I said, something similar might happen with DeepSeek in the near future.
Yeah. I have just one quick question, Luca. Were you expecting a higher sanction based on the history of this case, or
no,
not?
I was not. Personally, I was not expecting a higher sanction, and this was a difficult call for the supervisory authority, especially because the main ground was the lack of legal basis from the outset. But this is based on the assumption that possibly any internet service, for the mere fact of being available, should comply with GDPR, which is quite a bold move, and to some extent is justified by the ubiquitous nature of GDPR. But again, it could be considered as a small amount if you compare it to the prospective business of AI and OpenAI in the future. But it's not even a candy if you consider that it refers to a very, very early stage of the technology. So I wasn't expecting a higher penalty, honestly. I think it's balanced.
That's very interesting to hear, and brings me to my next question, because as you were mentioning during the explanation of this case, there is a recent new communication related to another AI tool that is named DeepSeek, that is not coming from the US but from China, and there are some similarities and differences also in this case. Of course, we are not at that stage of the OpenAI case, but can you tell us what we are talking about?
Yeah. So differently from there's a difference, but also a similarity with OpenAI. The difference is this was much quicker from the supervisory authority, because I think that this app is available since just a few days, few weeks, so just a very short time. But there was no data breach that made the headlines or something. So the reason for the supervisory authority to look into that is the glamour, is the headline. So everyone was discussing on Monday morning, everyone was saying, look, all the rationale behind the US, Stargate, NVIDIA's climbing the stocks was a thing which is now being put in jeopardy by this DeepSeek. So everyone looked at DeepSeek and tried it to the extent that it was unavailable because of the amount of queries that were inserted into the system. And also in this case, a few famous persons and journalists in Italy tested it live and had a wrong output. So again, they realized that the system is processing their personal data, but a part of this personal data was inaccurate. So again, there is a chance that processing is not performed correctly. And so this is the reason for the supervisory authority to approach the two companies, the two Chinese companies, and tell them, guys, there is a risk that you're doing something very risky for our data subject. So please, in 20 days, come back with a number of clarifications, because I need some background info to understand what's going on. So this is the similarity. So it's something that is a very new technology, but then the supervisory authority says, something smells not really good, so let me know what happens. We'll see. It's going to be interesting, because apart from this, there could be a chance that there is also a massive IP infringement behind this. So it's going to be a very entertaining time for legal practitioners in the next weeks and months.
And in terms of differences, because you mentioned the similarity, which is the difference?
The difference would be where data are processed. So we discussed a lot about the US, the fact that FISA 702, Executive Order 2012-23, Snowden, a lot about the US, but not a lot about China. And it would be very interesting to find what the supervisory authority will say if processing is taking place in China and a number of deficiency come up from that processing. So the difference is this is not the US, this is China, and we all know what the differences are when it comes to personal data and individual rights. So it's going to be interesting, but this is the biggest difference so far.
Thank you very much, Luca. We look forward together for the developments, and the answer hopefully will come into within the 20 days. Thanks a lot for your time. That was extremely interesting. Thanks for the update. I also thank all our listeners for being with us today. Looking forward to our next espresso. So bye, Luca, and bye everyone.
Bye.